you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, but today we are going to be discussing some unsolved true crime cases. I know a lot of you have gotten used to the paranormal, and I'm so excited about that, but we can't forget the people too, the people of these cases that I used to cover. You guys know I got out of true crime, and yeah, I'm already rambling a little bit, but it's really important that these people are not forgotten. So I was going through all of my scripts and kind of seeing what was finished and what wasn't. I have a lot of stuff that I have to finish because I start things and then I'm like, ooh, kitty, and I go on to something else. But these were scripts that I either wrote for myself or for Missing Persons and Mysteries that I kind of made my own, and I want to get these stories out too. A lot of them are very old and, unsolved. So with that being said, I'm going to fit as many as I can on this video, do a part 2, and then we'll move on from there. I'm still working on Missing in the Fae part 4 for this channel. It's brand new, all new information, not in my book and not on MPNM and not on this channel yet. So it's taking me a little time, but it's coming. All right. We're going to start with the case of Carla Beth Anderson. And I'm not even going to put introductions here. I'm just going to get into the story. 23-year-old Carla Beth Anderson called her mother on the night of Friday, November 13th, 1987, to tell her some very exciting news. Carla had just been made Employee of the Month at her job at the local Hardee's fast food restaurant in Wadena, Minnesota, where she worked. Carla Beth was bursting with excitement, and her mother, Roberta Wells, was beaming with pride at her daughter's achievement. She and Carla's father, Vern, knew the honor meant so much to their daughter. Carla had a mild intellectual disability, but she never let it stand in her way, and she just lived her life to the fullest. It never stood in the way of her goals. She achieved all of them. Roberta and Vern told their daughter they were going to take her out to dinner to celebrate later on that night when her shift ended. So when Carla's shift ended, her parents picked her up from work and, as promised, asked her where she would like to go for this little celebratory family dinner. Carla chose a local restaurant which served Mexican food. The family went to the Taco John's Mexican restaurant, and Carla excitedly announced she was going to have her picture taken that Monday, and it would then be added to where the previous Employee of the Month pictures went, so on the wall. This is kind of exciting. She's 23 years old. This might be her first job, and she's doing so well and really excelling at it. So I can see why, even, the source material made it seem like because she was intellectually mildly intellectually disabled, that this was the reason she was excited. But I feel like this is exciting for your first job, your Employee of the Month, The family discussed how that Sunday, Roberta and Vern would be heading to the cabin they were in the process of building to get some much needed work done, and Carla volunteered to go along and help. Mother and daughter then discussed how she would style her hair for her upcoming Employee of the Month photo. It was all very normal. It was even mundane. Carla and her parents left the Taco John's restaurant at around 7:30 p.m. and headed to a local video rental store to check out some movies. Remember that? Do you remember that? The local mom and pop dollar videos, and then they were all gone once Blockbuster came out? Anyways, Carla was dropped off at her apartment just a few minutes before 8 p.m. As her parents waved goodbye to their daughter, they told her again how proud they were of her, and she told them she was just going to watch some of the rented videos, head to bed. She was still holding the fountain soda from the dinner out as she walked into her apartment and shut the door. Carla lived in the Greenwood Apartments, which was a complex which specifically housed mentally disabled people and the elderly. It was a place where Carla felt safe, and her parents felt comfortable leaving her there to live on her own. The town of Wadena itself was considered to be an extremely safe place to live back in 1987. In fact, in 2021, Wadena is described by people who live there as, quote, close-knit, friendly, and very safe, end quote. The Greenwood apartment complex had a locked security door, and only residents had the key. You would have to get into this door in order to access any of the apartments inside. So kind of like a hotel, I guess, without the main lobby. I'm not sure if they had a lobby. But how you have to, if you go out a side door, you have to put your key in to get into the hotel, and then you have the key to the room. That's what this apartment complex was like. Carla loved the independence of having her own place, and this was said to be another thing that made her feel extremely proud of herself. She only lived about a half of a mile from the Hardee's where she worked and always walked to work, so she didn't have to rely on anyone to give her rides to and from work each day. This was a very independent young woman. Heck, I'm proud of her, and I don't even know her. Carla was described by her superiors as, quote, extremely dependable, end of quote, and she was said to always arrive early before her scheduled shifts would even start. This made things all the more alarming when Saturday morning came and Carla was a no-call, no-show at work. The manager at the time, a young man fresh out of college himself, who would later go on to become mayor of the small town, Wayne Walden, was immediately alarmed. So this guy was just out of college, managing this Hardee's, ended up becoming the mayor later on. His name was Wayne Walden. Carla was his most dependable employee, and he knew immediately something was very wrong for her to have not only not shown up, but not even called. Wayne called Carla's parents, and they in turn drove to her apartment. Immediately upon noticing that Carla's car wasn't home, they called the police. Right away, the police took Carla's disappearance very seriously. Her mental disability made her especially vulnerable and made her disappearance a top priority. She was only 4'9" and could very easily be mistaken for a little girl, which added to the concerns of both her parents and the police. At a mere 80 pounds, she could have easily and very quickly been overpowered. When detectives entered her apartment, they found nothing at all amiss, suspicious, or out of place. There were no obvious signs of a struggle, and one of the videotapes she had rented the night before was still in her VCR, wow. Her fountain drink from the restaurant was sitting on the coffee table, and her purse was on the counter. The only things that were missing were her keys and her orange and brown employee's jacket from Hardee's. The fact that the door had been locked from the outside led police to believe she left her apartment willingly. Whether she was alone or with someone was a mystery, though, so she had put on her jacket and left the apartment and locked it, so she had her keys. The investigators also discovered that the security door, which was supposed to remain locked at all times, had been left propped open the night before by some new tenants who had left it that way after moving their belongings into their apartment. How incredibly irresponsible. Like, you're just moving in and now you leave the entire apartment complex, who was filled with mentally disabled and elderly, vulnerable to the outside world. To be fair, whoever was moving in had to have been either mentally disabled in some way or elderly. So I guess, okay, Gemma, give them a break. Detectives were unable to determine if this had anything to do with Carla's disappearance, however, as back in 1987, it was not common for surveillance cameras to be monitoring residential homes. In fact, the use of surveillance cameras was relatively unheard of at all for public places back then. So going to, Hardee's or going to the grocery store or wherever. I think banks were the only places, one of at least the only places, like businesses maybe, but residential homes, there was no such thing as like Ring doorbells or, home security cameras. I think those were for like the wealthy. On the night of November 13th, a fire had broken out in a swampy area of Wadena. Peat, present in large amounts in swamps, is extremely combustible. If a fire starts, it can be hard to control and it can get out of control very quickly. The fire would have definitely been visible from the windows in Carla's apartment, and investigators wondered if she had become curious and decided to take a walk nearer to where the swamp was to get a better look at this fire. Had she left her apartment alone and run into some trouble at some point while further investigating the blaze? A large-scale search was conducted with search teams combing through the area surrounding the Greenwood apartments, while detectives went door to door trying to find anyone who might have seen Carla after her parents dropped her off Friday night or heard anything suspicious or whatever. Unfortunately, they were unable to locate anyone who recalled seeing Carla. Although they still believed it was possible she might have left to see the swamp fire, they were unable to find any evidence to back up this theory or really any other. The fire was not the only event taking place close to her home that night. A brown Plymouth Horizon was found stolen a couple of blocks from her apartment complex, and it was never recovered. There is no proof the auto theft is related to her disappearance, though. Extensive air and ground searches also failed to produce any clues to Carla's whereabouts. Search teams spent hours scouring swamps and wooded areas, aided by 50 members of the Civil Air Patrol. Several of Carla's co-workers volunteered to help in the search. Wayne Walden said that the entire restaurant crew had been devastated by Carla's disappearance, and they wanted to do everything they possibly could to help in finding her. Hardee's supplied food and drinks throughout the search effort, which lasted actually for several weeks. Detectives interviewed Carla's family members, friends, and neighbors, but no one had any idea what might have happened to Carla. Investigators interviewed her boyfriend, who lived in Illinois, several times as well. Eventually, authorities announced that they had cleared Carla's family and boyfriend from having any involvement in her disappearance. Although the detectives were convinced that Carla met with foul play, they had few leads and no suspects. They received a number of tips early in the investigation, but all of them led to dead ends. Hoping to increase public interest in the case, Carla's family announced that they were offering a $10,000 reward for information leading to Carla's whereabouts or the identity of the person responsible for her disappearance. $10,000 was worth a lot more in 1987 than it is in 2022. A few more tips trickled in, but police were never able to develop any solid leads. Both of Carla's parents died in 2008 without ever knowing what happened to their daughter that fateful November night so long ago. Her case remains unsolved, and there have been no solid leads or new evidence presented to be investigated since the initial search was conducted and leads were investigated. If you knew Carla and have proof of the relationship, feel free to contact the Echoes Path administration on social media or via email. Her page will be uploaded with more information if sources are provided. Please contact the Wadena Police Department at 218-631-7700, and that info, everything I just said, will be in the description box. If you saw or heard something around the time Carla disappeared, more information is desperately needed to solve this case, and any information you can provide to authorities could be extremely helpful, and even the smallest bit of information could bring this tragic and extremely mysterious case to a close. Guys, even if you think it means nothing, you are not an investigator, most likely, so you wouldn't even know. If you know something, if you did something, don't be a coward. 1987 was a long time ago, okay? Come forward. Carla had, I'm sure, more family and people that cared about her. Wayne Wolden, who became the mayor of Wadena, they all cared for her. So just because her parents are deceased doesn't mean nobody's wondering what happened to Carla. I'm sure the investigators got very invested as well. Our next case is Courtney Bryan, who went missing from Shasta Trinity National Forest. 32-year-old Courtney Bryan and her beloved dog Booch decided to get away after Courtney finished her shift at Patagonia, where she works in the repairs department in Reno, Nevada, United States. Courtney's grandfather had died a week earlier on September 16th, and she had taken a few days off for a period of bereavement. Her last Instagram post shows the blonde-haired beauty gazing into the camera as she floated in the serene waters of Hunt Hot Springs in Shasta Trinity Forest in California. I'll try to put pictures, but I'm having a hard time with them with copyright and the new software, so I'm really sorry. A lot of you have been like, you need to put pictures. I'm trying my best. It will eventually come. This picture was uploaded on September 23rd, 2021, and was the last time anything was seen or heard from Courtney. There haven't been any calls or texts responded to or that came from her phone since that day either. Courtney's family is obviously frantic with worry, and they say that while she was known to be a free spirit who would travel often by herself, she was definitely not someone who would take off or go off grid without letting her family know when she was returning, or if her plans changed and she decided to stay longer, where she was, all of that stuff. She would let at least someone know. Even if she needed a day or two without her phone or social media, she would always tell her loved ones so they didn't worry if they needed to contact her or if they couldn't get in touch with her. All in all, this is completely and totally out of character for her. Her sister, Katana, stated, quote, "It makes sense that she wanted to get away, but she would have been back by now. She wouldn't let us worry," end quote. Courtney didn't return to work as planned on September 27th, and that's when everyone knew that something was horribly wrong. Her family reported her as missing, and with the help of her phone records, it was found that her last texts and calls were made the same day that her last social media post was made to Instagram, as I previously described. Katana told Dateline her sister had called a former boyfriend to get directions to Hunt Hot Springs in Shasta Trinity National Forest, which is where, as I said, the last Instagram photo that was uploaded was taken. Courtney's last text was to a friend at 9:03 p.m. that same day. It was simply a link to a song on Spotify. Deputies with the Shasta County Sheriff's Office are investigating Courtney's disappearance, and according to a press release, her early 2000s red Subaru Outback with Nevada license plate LG0637 is also still missing, as is her beloved dog Booch. Neither has been located. Booch is a black and white border collie and wolf mix that goes everywhere with Courtney. Katana told investigators and media that her sister is an avid climber and hiker who would often go away to the California mountains for retreats to be by herself. Courtney also has a cat which was left at her home in Reno and was still there when her family and investigators arrived to search the residence when they were looking for any clues as to her whereabouts. The investigators found nothing and everything looked completely normal as far as Courtney's home was concerned. Quote, she left her cat here at the apartment, so I know she was planning on coming back, Katana said. She also said, quote, she loved her animals and her plants. She would never leave them like this, end of quote. Katana told Dateline that she also knows her sister would never leave her nephew, who is her whole entire world. Courtney's family has been in very close contact with deputies as they go about investigating this case. There have been several sightings of Courtney since she disappeared, but none have turned out to be her. As the younger sister and Courtney's only sibling, Katana has turned to social media, specifically TikTok, to help spread the news of her sister's disappearance in the hope someone will spot her and come forward with information. Quote, it's worked for other cases in missing people, end of quote, Katana said. So now I'm hoping TikTok comes through for us. Please help me find my sister, end quote. Courtney is described as being 5'7" tall and weighs about 120 pounds with blonde hair and blue eyes. She has 2 tattoos, a star on the inside of her right wrist and a geometric honeycomb on her calf. Courtney's case has been transferred for unknown reasons from the Shasta County Sheriff's Department to the Reno Police Department. Anyone with information on Courtney's whereabouts is asked to call the Reno Police Department Missing Persons Unit at 775-321-8372. Again, that'll be in the description box. And again, if you know something, say something. Don't be a coward. If you made a mistake, if you know that she had an accident, if you just came across her while she was still alive and can give the police that information, the family deserves to know. Imagine if this was your sister or your daughter, okay? And the fact that the dog hasn't been found, that makes me very, very nervous. Even more so. All of the cases that I'm putting in this video are really sad, but when it's a small child, it tugs at my heartstrings even more. You know, being a mom, you guys know how it is. Even being an aunt or an uncle, you know, it's just kids in general. I don't know. Michael Donohee. On March 24th, 1991, 4-year-old Michael Donohee disappeared from the playground of Blanchard Elementary School at 12:30 p.m. It was a very windy Sunday in Victoria, British Columbia, but the Donohee family wanted to go to a flag football game at the local elementary school. The family of 4 piled into the car and headed off. It was Crystal Donohee and her husband Bruce, 4-year-old Michael, and his 6-month-old little sister Caitlin. Crystal was participating in the football game, and the family was excited to be able to be together and watch her play the sport. Once they arrived at the elementary school, Michael had asked his mother if he could go and play on some playground equipment that was very nearby. Crystal said okay, as she could clearly see the entire playground area from where her husband would be sitting on the bleachers. So she knew that her husband Bruce would be able to watch her play and see little Michael at the same exact time. Or at least that's what she thought. Later on, Crystal would remember her exact response to her son. She said she told him, quote, okay, you can go to the park, wait there and don't leave with anybody. Just wait there and daddy will come and get you, end of quote. As Crystal put on her cleats in preparation for her game and Bruce Donohee checked the score of the previous game, mere steps away from his seat on the bleachers, and little Michael, well, he walked over to the playground and seemingly within a mere minute or 2, or possibly even less, disappeared without a trace. By 1 p.m., police and countless volunteers were combing the area for Michael. Despite over 11,000 tips and one of the largest search efforts in Canadian history, no trace of little Michael was ever found to this day. This is really all the information we know. Even after all of these years, there isn't even a hint as to where Michael went and what happened to him. Most missing persons cases have at least some theories, but this one's so strange. There's no theories. Michael disappeared, according to his parents and several nearby witnesses, in less than 2 minutes' time, about as long as it took for his mom to put on her cleats and his dad to simply turn his head to look at a scoreboard. It's been said that Michael's parents were never considered suspects and their inner circle had been cleared very quickly. The most prominent theory is that this was simply a crime of opportunity and that Michael was most likely abducted. The authorities interviewed all known sex offenders in the area and several witnesses, but very little information was uncovered. Several of the witnesses interviewed did report seeing, quote, a man in his late 40s or 50s had been near the playground, end of quote, and that, quote, a brown van had also been spotted nearby, end of quote. Unfortunately, even though the police staged an elaborate recreation at Blanchard Elementary School a month after Michael was abducted, no new leads were ever generated. In January of 2009, the case garnered some new attention, and perhaps a new ray of hope was given to Michael's family when a man from Milwaukee, Wisconsin in the United States named Vernon Seitz confessed to his psychiatrist and claimed he had murdered 2 children in 1958. He died of natural causes shortly after, and it's unknown if Vernon knew he was going to die and meant this to be a deathbed confession. Either way, the psychiatrist contacted local police, and they took it very seriously. When they searched his home, they found many disturbing items, including child pornography, books on cannibalism, and files on unsolved missing children's cases in the United States. They even found one of Michael Donohee's missing persons flyers. Unfortunately, however, despite all of this strange evidence being found in Vernon Seitz's home, though, and after a very thorough investigation, Victoria police could find no connection between Vernon and little Michael's disappearance. Not only did Michael's disappearance absolutely devastate his family, it completely changed the entire community of Victoria, BC forever. People who were there back in 1991 still remember the case and ongoing investigation. It's like the picture of the toddler is forever burned and emblazoned into their minds and hearts. Just like the family too, the community is terrorized by thoughts and theories as to what could have possibly happened to such a small child in such a short period of time. They were completely stripped of their safe thoughts, and the days of going to bed without locking their doors and windows were forever gone. The entire country was gripped with fear and keeping a closer eye on their children. Michael's little sister, Caitlin, who was only 6 months old at the time of his disappearance, says she still misses her older brother somehow, even though she has no memories at all of him. She stated, quote, "My mom says he was really good with me. I just have to hold on to that," end of quote. His family never recovered from the shock and horror of their little boy going missing in the blink of an eye, and as one could only imagine, replay that day over and over again in their heads, wishing with everything they have that they could just go back and change that less than 2-minute time frame. Michael's mother, Crystal, still blames herself for her son's disappearance. She told the media, quote, "Giving my permission to let him go play in the park by himself, I should have made him wait. That's the hardest part to deal with," end quote. The pain, loss, and guilt that the Donohee family continues to grapple with are unimaginable. On top of losing their son, the family has had to deal with their fair share of pain coming from cruel and evil people as well. From people trying to extort $10,000 from them and promising Michael's safe return if they paid it, to horrible pranksters left the family voice message stating that Michael had been killed by a satanic cult. Additionally, the Donohees have often gotten their hopes up that Michael has been found. Numerous men from various parts of British Columbia, such as Port McNeill, Surrey, and Chase, have been thought to be Michael until DNA tests prove otherwise. Heartbreakingly, Michael remains lost forever, without even a single hint of a clue as to where he may have gone, who with, or what has happened to him. There is a $100,000 reward for information leading to Michael's whereabouts. Anyone with information about Michael's disappearance can contact the Victoria Police Department dedicated tip line at 250-995-7444, or to remain anonymous, call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS. That's 1-800-222-8477. At the time of his disappearance, Michael was wearing a blue hooded jacket with red lining and red cuffs, a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles t-shirt, multicolored rugby pants, and blue sneakers. Michael has blonde hair and blue eyes. I have discussed some missing persons cases on this channel as I started off with true crime, and it's not that I'm getting back fully into true crime, but it's always going to be in my heart. True crime is something that I grew up with. It's something that's always been an interest to me. It's something that I feel very, very passionately about. So I think every once in a while I'm just going to do cases like this. But also writing for missing persons and mysteries. And in these cases, we've covered some who have turned back up alive, some people who have been found deceased, and still others who have never been found at all. And as they say, the devil's in the details. It's the smallest details sometimes that can either make or break a case, or that can leave us scratching our heads and being even more confused than when we first started out over the original disappearance. The disappearance of Tara Calico is one of those cases where you kind of feel like you're right on the brink of having answers, like it's something like right on the tip of your tongue or on the tip of your brain, only to find the next bit of information bringing you right back around to the beginning all over again, right back at square one. This sad and frightening case is one of thousands where the person was abducted and never seen or heard from again. However, it's the little clues along the way that kind of make this case stand out. Tara Calico was from Belen, New Mexico, and I could be pronouncing that wrong. I apologize. And this is where her home was when she left in the morning of September 20th, 1988. Tara was 19 years old and had her whole life ahead of her. She had no idea when she went out for her usual bike ride at 9:30 that morning that it would turn out to be the last time she would ever see her home again. Her mother usually rode with her up until very recently when she felt like the two were being stalked by a passing motorist, and she was too scared to continue on the morning rides with her daughter. This would be a strange and sad coincidence and foreboding that neither mother nor daughter had any idea would be so relevant and possibly close to the truth until it was too late. Her mother and Tara and her mother went out almost every morning for a bike ride. And very, very recently, before this happened, her mom was like, listen, I feel like we've been being stalked a couple of times. I can't go on the rides with you anymore. As far as they were concerned, this day was no different than all the rest. A perfectly ordinary Tuesday morning, or so it seemed. Tara's mother suggested that she carry along mace with her on her morning bike rides, but Tara refused it. This was after the alleged stalker incident, and she insisted her mother was just being paranoid. Tara had a date to play tennis with her boyfriend at 12:30 that day and asked her mother to come and pick her up if she wasn't home by noon. When 11:30 hit and still no sign of Tara, Patty, her mother, set out to go and pick her up as planned. She drove the usual route, but this time Tara was still nowhere to be found. This was long before the days of cell phones, so Patty wasn't able to just call her daughter and ask where she was or why she wasn't where she was supposed to be, or etc. This was immediately concerning for Patty, and she contacted the authorities pretty much right away and reported her daughter as missing. As they investigated further and searched along the route Tara was known to have been riding that day, they found pieces of her Sony Walkman and cassette tape. So back in the day, for all you youngins out there, I'm sure you probably know this, but some of you might not. We used to have to wear these things over our head, and it was a wire that attached to this big thing that played a cassette tape. If you don't know what a cassette tape is, please Google it. Though there was no way of knowing for sure that these items belonged to Tara, the family were pretty convinced as they knew what her belongings looked like. Tara was a creature of habit and brought along the same Walkman cassette player and tape with her almost every single day when she went on these bike rides. Tara's family believed that she might have purposely dropped these items to not only mark her trail, but to alert whoever came looking for her that she was in some kind of danger. After all, there would be no other reason for her to just have left her stuff broken and lying on the side of the road. Even if she dropped it and it broke, right, she would have picked up the pieces. During the investigation, several people came forward and said that they saw Tara riding her bicycle along the route where her items were found. Her bicycle, to this day, has never been located either. No one witnessed her presumed abduction, however, and there weren't many clues other than the people who claimed to have seen her and the broken Walkman scattered around the area where she was last seen by several passerby. There were several witnesses who said they saw a light-colored 1953 or 54 Ford pickup truck with a camper shell following Tara, but the authorities were never able to locate the owner of the vehicle. It's unknown, though, whether or not this was connected to Tara's disappearance, but in my opinion, like, why would this person, when they're looking for this truck, not come forward and be like, oh, that was me. I saw her riding her bike, and you know, I just passed her along the road. Tara's case went cold fairly quickly, and her family and loved ones were left with no answers. They had the perpetual fear that Tara would be found deceased somewhere, but also they had the perpetual hope that she would once again come walking through the front door someday. In June of 1989, it seemed that new life was breathed back into the case when terrifying new evidence was possibly found in the parking lot of a convenience store in Port St. Joe, Florida. A photograph was lying on the ground between two vehicles. The woman who found the photo said it was found in a parking space of where a white windowless Toyota cargo van driven by a man with a mustache, believed to be in his 30s, was parking when she arrived at the store. However, despite police setting up roadblocks in an attempt to intercept the vehicle, the man was never caught nor brought to interrogation. The picture in question was a Polaroid which showed a little boy and a young woman, both bound and gagged and with terrified looks on their faces. Because of the duct tape and gags in their mouths, it was hard to tell who the image was of. While I can't put images here, go on over to Missing Persons and Mysteries, check out Calico. They did put the images in there for you guys. It was theorized by investigators, however, that the young woman in the photo was Calico and that the boy was Michael Henley, also of New Mexico, who had disappeared in April of 1988, and I will be covering that in the next video. According to investigators, the picture had to have been taken after May of 1989 because the particular film used in the photograph was not available until then. The identification of the boy in the photograph as Michael Henley seems unlikely because his remains were found discovered in 1990 in the Zuni Mountains, about 7 miles from his family's campsite where he had disappeared, and 75 miles from where Calico disappeared. There was much back and forth and conjecture about this, but in the end, the standing ruling is that it was not him in the picture. Police believed he simply wandered off and sadly died of exposure to the elements. Tara's mother, Patty, believed that the girl in the picture was in fact her daughter. This positive identification was mainly made due to a scar the woman in the photo had on her leg, which, according to Patty, was identical to one Tara had in the exact same spot on the exact same leg. Tara had received this particular scar due to an injury she suffered from a car accident when she was younger. In addition, a paperback copy of V.C. Andrews' My Sweet Audrina, said to be one of Tara Calico's favorite books, can be seen lying next to the young woman. Scotland Yard analyzed the photo and concluded that the woman was Tara, but a second analysis by the Los Alamos National Laboratory disagreed. An FBI analysis of the photo was inconclusive. So you have one, Scotland Yard saying, yes, that's definitely her. Los Alamos National Laboratory saying, no way. And the FBI being like, we have no idea. It's up in the air. This is where the case seems to take an even more bizarre turn. 20 years after the discovery of the photograph, which was of course widely shared by the media at the time, pictures of a little boy were sent to the Port St. Joe Police Chief David Barnes. He received 2 letters postmarked June 10th and August 10th, 2009 from Albuquerque, New Mexico. One letter contained a photo printed on copy paper of a young boy with sandy brown hair. Someone had drawn a black band in ink on the photo over the boy's mouth as if it were covered in tape, as in the 1989 picture. It seemed whoever sent the photos was alluding to the fact that the boy in the original photograph found all those years ago was Michael Henley after all. This has never been officially confirmed, nor has it ever been officially disproven. The second letter contained an original image of the boy. On August 12th, the Star newspaper in Port St. Joe received a third letter, also postmarked in Albuquerque on August 10th, and depicting the same image of a boy with black marker drawn over his mouth. None of the letters contained a return address or a note indicating the child's identity, making the officials there believe it may have had something to do with the disappearance of Tara Calico. I'm sure there was no DNA on the envelope or anything like that either, because there would probably be something by now. Nobody gave up on her, so I'm sure that they were, still investigating this. The letters were sent in and around the same time that a self-proclaimed psychic called the detective about Tara, saying she had met a runaway in California with whom she had worked at a strip club who eventually wound up murdered. Try to stay with me. The caller said she had dreams suggesting the runaway may have been Tara Calico and that she may be buried somewhere in California. Though it was a long shot and there was no real location given publicly as to where this alleged psychic said the girl could possibly be buried, the police must have had some additional information, as they did conduct searches and reported that these searches had led to nothing and no bodies at all had been found. So I don't think they went just by the psychic. They had to have had something else that led them to California. They were searching like a specific area, and the psychic didn't give a specific area. She just said California. So they had to have had more info. But Tara running away and being a stripper, it just, I don't know. Why would she do that? She had a great life. I mean, not that strippers can have great lives. I'm going to stop talking now. So no bodies had been found during this random search, not of Tara Calico or anyone else. Additionally, these photos were given to the FBI for further investigation in hope of finding fingerprints or possible DNA evidence. 20 years after she had disappeared that fateful day in September of 1988, Sheriff of Valencia County, California at the time, named Rene Rivera, reported that he had received what he believed to be credible information that finally explained what happened to Tara Calico. This information alleged that some boys who knew Tara drove up behind her in a truck and some form of car accident followed. Like maybe they bumped her or they accidentally hit her or they purposely bumped her, whatever. Tara later died and those responsible covered up the crime. Rivera states he knows the names of those involved, but that without a body, he couldn't make a case. And this was in 1998, 20 years after. Yeah, so 2008, actually. You can't prosecute a no-body crime when you have additional evidence. I mean, he should have had additional evidence to make this statement publicly, right? This doesn't make any sense. To me, personally, what I feel in my gut, like what my knowing tells me, is that he was just trying to get this case closed or at least put some kind of label conclusion on this case, because the family and the public were probably still in outcry 20 years later of what the heck happened to Tara. But that's just my opinion. Tara's stepfather, John Dole, in response to what Rivera stated about, the no body case and all that, has disputed those claims. He said that the sheriff should not have made these comments if he was not willing to arrest anyone, and that strong circumstantial evidence should be enough for a conviction, even if there is no body. 2 other Polaroid photographs, possibly of Tara, have surfaced over the years. The first was found near a construction site in Montecito, California, and is a blurry photo of a girl's face with tape covering her mouth and light blue striped fabric behind her. Quote, similar to that on the pillow in the Toyota van photo, end of quote. It was taken on film that was not available until June 1989. The second shows, quote, a woman loosely bound in gauze, her eyes covered with more gauze and large black framed glasses, end quote, with a male passenger beside her on an Amtrak train. The film used was not available until February of 1990. Tara's mother believed the first one was Tara, but thought that the second may have been some kind of sick joke. Her sister stated, quote, they had a striking, uncalming resemblance. As for me, I will not rule them out. But keep in mind, our family has had to identify many other photographs, and all but those 3 were ruled out, end of quote. In October of 2013, a 6-person task force was established to reinvestigate Tara's disappearance. As of 2017, no arrests have been made, and the case remains open. On October 1st, 2019, the FBI announced that they are offering a reward of up to $20,000 for precise details leading to the identification or location of Tara Lee Calico and information leading to the arrest and conviction of those responsible for her disappearance. And I'm sorry, that was a quote. In September 2021, the Valencia County Sheriff's Office and the New Mexico State Police issued a statement that they have a new lead in the case and that the focus of a sealed warrant for an unknown private residence located within Valencia County has been issued. However, no further details were provided. There have been no additional updates since this time, so that's about October, November, December, January, 4 to 5 months from... that was 4 or 5 months ago, but who knows? They could have found something and they just are processing the evidence or, interviewing suspects or witnesses. We don't know. So hopefully something comes out of that sealed warrant. What happened to Tara Calico? Is it possible some boys she knew, possibly from her neighborhood or school, decided to try and scare her, but took it too far and accidentally ran her over and killed her? Did they go up to bump her I got you, to make her fall off into a ditch or something? But they accidentally went too fast and hit her. If this happened, did it lead them to have to cover it up and get rid of her body and bicycle, as Sheriff Rivera believes and publicly stated? If this is the case, then why wasn't the witness or witnesses who allegedly came forward to him with this information called in to testify? As Tara's stepfather stated, the circumstantial evidence should have been enough for a conviction despite having no body. Is it possible that her mother was right and perhaps someone had been stalking the 2 of them and saw Tara alone and decided to take the opportunity to abduct her right there on the side of the road while she was riding alone? Were any of the photographs handed in actually Tara? What was the new lead in the case back in 2019, and why had nothing ever come of this alleged search warrant on the private residence? That's what I'm talking about. They could still be analyzing all of that. These are questions we hope one day will be answered, if for nothing else, then that Tara's family could at least begin to heal. Maybe one day justice will be served and the facts of what happened to Tara Calico all those years ago when she was simply going for a bike ride and listening to some of her favorite music in her Walkman will come to light and someone will be finally held accountable. As always, I'll bring you any updates that come to light as soon as I receive them, probably via Missing Persons and Mysteries, okay? Personally, what I believe is that she was abducted. I don't know if she threw her Walkman on purpose. I don't know, in a frantic panic, if just a regular person back before true crime kind of blew up and before the internet and all that stuff would think that quickly. But I didn't know Tara personally. I don't think that I would have back, then if I didn't know all I knew now. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think she just dropped it and she was abducted and someone either knocked her out and pulled her into the car and threw her bike in the back and took off. I feel like this 1953 or 1954 Ford pickup definitely has something to do with it. A pickup truck bicycle fit right in the back of it. Nobody would ask any questions if a pickup truck had a bike in it, right in the back. Big deal. The fact that this person never came forward is what makes me think they may have had something to do with it. There seems to be no discrimination at all when it comes to who will disappear and when. While all cases are heartbreaking and have a devastating effect on not just the family of the victims, but also on communities as a whole, there seems to be an extra degree of confusion when it comes to people who seemingly vanish into thin air and are never seen again, like I just stated. With them, there is no closure for the family. There's no sense of peace or justice at all. And as with the case we're about to discuss now, like with the cases of most teenagers who disappear, the rumor and speculation seem to lend a certain amount of grief and pain to the person's loved ones. The rumor mill, all of the horrible speculation, teenagers talking, can make the case, so much worse. 16-year-old Michaela Bali was just an average teenager from Yorkton, Saskatchewan, Canada, when she seemingly disappeared into thin air on April 12, 2016. Michaela was born on July 2nd, 1999. Her mother is Paula Bali, and the two live together with Michaela's aunt, grandmother, and two younger siblings. Michaela is described as being, quote, quiet and shy, end of quote, by her family and, quote, caring by her peers. She played the violin and was a member of her high school's drama club. She was in the 11th grade on that fateful day in April of 2016. Here are the reported events of that day and everything known to have happened leading up to Michaela's disappearance based on witness statements and thousands of hours of surveillance footage from numerous different sources that police were able to view and put together for an accurate timeline event of that last day that Michaela was seen. According to Michaela's friends, in the days leading up to her disappearance, she constantly spoke of different places she wanted to visit and travel to. It was more than just like, yeah, someday I want to go to, the United States. That would be cool. She was talking over and over again about specific places that she was going to go to, okay? It wasn't just like, the usual teenage chatter of where they want to go when they're old enough to travel alone. This was more than that. Though it was later determined not to be the case, she was telling her friends she had saved $5,000 in her bank account for the above-mentioned trips. The day before she went missing on April 11th, Michaela sent a text message to a friend asking for a ride to the local TD Bank the next morning. She spoke to the bank herself that day several times and ended up wiring $25 into her account. Later that night, she messaged several friends saying she was unhappy about a problem with a boy. These friends would later state that she seemed distressed and asked for help. She never spoke of a specific problem, however, and though Michaela seemed to have many friends inside of her school, none of them really knew what she did when she wasn't there, like when she was at home. They knew she went online a lot and was bullied for her acne by some of the other kids she went to school with. Despite all of this, though, her mother stated that right before she disappeared, it seemed to her that Michaela was, quote, hitting her stride, end of quote. Despite knowing she had many friends in the online community using several social media platforms, nobody knew exactly who she talked to on a regular basis or any specific knowledge, including her closest friends from school. It's uncertain whether Michaela was specifically trying to hide these things from people or if it just happened that way that nobody really knew any of the details. According to her mother, April 12, 2016 was just another normal day for the two of them. They both got up and got ready to start their day. Michaela was dropped off at the Sacred Heart High School at 8 o'clock in the morning on time by her grandmother, and she logged into the school's Wi-Fi 8 minutes later. She went to her locker and unloaded some items from her backpack into it and was seen on the school surveillance footage leaving the premises at 8:26 a.m. So she was there for 26 minutes approximately. When Michaela didn't show up for her first class that morning, her ex-boyfriend sent her a text message asking where she was and why she wasn't there. Michaela responded by telling him that she was on the other side of town. It seems as though upon leaving the school, she walked to the nearest TD Bank as her friend was unable to give her the ride she had asked for the night before. Michaela was seen on the bank's surveillance footage waiting for it to open as she had arrived before it had done so. Once inside the bank, she withdrew $55 from her account and then headed to a local pawn shop to try and sell a silver ring. The owner of this pawn shop later recounted that he didn't buy the ring and told Michaela it had too little value and wasn't worth it for him. He said, quote, she was quiet and didn't seem in distress, end of quote. She then headed south from the pawn shop and at 9:09 a.m. she entered a Tim Hortons restaurant and sat for a while alone and on her phone. Most people involved believe she was in the restaurant simply to use their Wi-Fi. Michaela sat in the Tim Hortons for 13 minutes, all the while continuously glancing at the door which was behind her. She left the restaurant and surveillance captured her walking around the various stores, walking through parking lots, and at one point she had her phone to her ear and she was talking on it. Phone records indicated she was using a third-party app like FaceTime call feature because there was no cell phone records matching a call at that time. So that really sucked because they can't figure out who she was talking to because she was using a third-party app. And this is when I start to wonder, like, was she purposely doing this? That's where grooming starts to come in and all that, but I'll discuss my theories and opinions at the end. It's just It frustrates me because if they could have only figured out who she was talking to. Michaela only had a certain number of minutes on her phone and would rely heavily on Wi-Fi and third-party apps such as Facebook or WhatsApp to make calls so as not to use up all of the minutes. At 9:55 a.m., Michaela went back into the same Tim Hortons as before and sent a message to a friend. It said, quote, "Hey, I need help," end quote. 20 minutes later, however, she messaged that same friend and said, quote, "Never mind, I figured it out," end quote. Michaela then approached a random stranger in this restaurant and asked her to help book a hotel room. Michaela was too young to do this on her own and needed someone 18 or older to do it for her. This bit of information is where Michaela, constantly telling friends in the weeks and months leading up to her disappearance that she wanted to visit larger cities near and around the small community where she lived, came into everyone's mind. But if she's asking this person to book a hotel room, it had to have been somewhere near, right? Like, she wasn't saying, like, can you book me a hotel room in the United States somewhere? So she had to have been planning on staying somewhere nearby, which, God, she had to have been meeting somebody. It's so hard for me not to speculate, but I'm trying to just give the facts and then my opinion. Sorry. In fact, Michaela spoke so much about leaving her small town and running off to a big city that her friends barely even paid attention to it anymore. It was like, oh yeah, that's just Michaela. She says that all the time. They all figured she was just daydreaming about where she would like to go when she was older and able to go on her own. Michaela made a ton of friends online and used several social media platforms, as I said before. In the days leading up to her disappearance, she did mention to friends that one of her online boyfriends, as in male friends, was coming to meet her. So a male friend that she had met online was coming to meet her. Again, they were used to this and didn't give it much attention, except to remember Michaela had said that the guy's name was Christopher. The woman Michaela approached in the Tim Hortons about helping her rent the hotel room declined to do so. I mean, good idea. You don't want to rent a hotel room for an underager. Michaela entered her school again briefly a little before noon. At 12:03 p.m., she was seen leaving again on the surveillance footage. There is no other footage of Michaela after she is seen leaving the high school for the second time. It is therefore assumed someone picked her up. After all, there had been so much footage as to trace her every movement down to the minute when she left the first time. This was the only logical conclusion that could be drawn from the lack of any surveillance footage at all, and this small community was covered in cameras. Unfortunately, either it was a sick twist of fate or purposefully planned by Michaela that if someone had picked her up in a vehicle, it was not captured on any surveillance cameras either. In my opinion, this had to have been on purpose. Somebody, and I don't think it was Michaela, but somebody knew exactly what they were doing. And I think it was somebody local. How else would they know where the surveillance footage was? And in fact, it could have been someone older, like from the area, like from the school, because if she left the school and there was no footage, that means she had to have been picked up kind of right away. And who else would know what someone went and scoped out the school to see where the cameras were? That would make sense if she just walked out and wasn't seen again. But she was seen again going to the Tim Hortons, walking around the stores on the phone. It had to have been someone familiar with the area. When Michaela's grandmother arrived as usual to pick her up from school and take her to a violin lesson and Michaela never came out, her mother was notified. Michaela Bali immediately checked her, quote, slush fund, which was a bunch of money she had stashed in a certain spot in the family home in case of emergencies. The money was still all accounted for, however, and Michaela hadn't touched any of it. Aside from the small backpack she carried her books to school in that day, it seemed as though she hadn't taken any of her belongings with her at all either. Paula, of course, contacted the authorities and the investigation into what happened to Michaela Bali was launched. As of 7 o'clock the next morning, April 13th, 2016, Michaela's phone had either died or was shut off because it wouldn't ring and would only go straight to voicemail. In the months after her disappearance, police were able to track down most of the people she had been communicating with online. All of them were cleared by either having an alibi or not being in the area at the time she went missing. Process of elimination left a lot to be desired as there was no one left to focus the investigation on, and the authorities could never figure out who, quote, Christopher was, who Michaela had told friends was coming to visit her right before she seemingly vanished off the face of the earth, or if he even existed at all. She, sometimes exaggerated her boyfriend stories and stuff. Who doesn't do that in high school? The internet wasn't big when I was in high school, but I'm sure I would have made up some friends. That's just that I was bullied and I probably would have made friends up. I'm just saying. So I don't blame the girl. Michaela's mother is hopeful her daughter is alive and will eventually be found, of course. She believes Michaela never meant to leave for any extended period of time, and unfortunately she may have fallen victim to some sort of human trafficking operation. At the time of her disappearance, Michaela Bali was 16 years old and stood at around 5 foot 1 inch tall and weighed about 123 pounds. This was almost 6 years ago, so these measurements certainly could have changed since then. Her natural hair color is red, but at the time of her disappearance, she was blonde and she changed her hair color quite a bit. She has blue eyes and is described as having a light or fair complexion. She has some distinguishing features like acne and acne scars, as well as a slight birthmark the size of a dime on her chin. She has a few scars between her eyes from the chickenpox, protruding front teeth, and a whole row of scars on one of her thighs, unfortunately due to self-harm. Sometimes she wears glasses. If you have any information about Michaela Bali, please contact the RCMP. The family is offering a $25,000 reward for her safe return. Guys, that's all I have for you today. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that maybe we can share this video, spread the word, put the information out there. All of these cases are separately done on Missing Persons and Mysteries. I wrote the scripts for them. I asked Bill if it would be okay if I did a video with them so that we can further spread the word, and he said of course. So if you find the connection from here to Missing Person and Mysteries, you know, I know you're going to accuse me in the comments of stealing it from them. They're going to accuse them in the comments of stealing it from me. You know, get a life is all I can say. Who cares? The important thing is to get the information out there. I appreciate all of you guys so much. I love you all so very much. MoonBearOracle will be up and running soon. I am almost finished with all of the monthlies. So what I'm doing over there is once a month readings for each astrological sign, so 12 readings a month, and then hopefully March, April at the latest, I'm going to be doing once a month and once a week. That's intuitive oracle readings. I'm still doing personals, guys. Hit me up, moonbearoracle@gmail.com or GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com. If you have any encounters with the supernatural and or paranormal that you would like to share with me so I can make it a part of my listener encounter series, I really do need some stories, guys. You can send me videos of you speaking it in email if that's easier for you, or just write it out for me to read. GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com. In the description box, you will find links to my weekend show for Spaced Out Radio on Spaced Out Radio right here on YouTube, the After Hour show with myself, Big Willie Townsend, and John Hudson, where we talk everything woo, supernatural, paranormal, extraterrestrial. We run the gamut. It's an amazing, amazing time. I'll leave a link to one of the shows in the description box. And that's from 11 p.m. Eastern to 2 a.m. Okay, it is the after hour show, but I'm telling you, it is worth it. Check it out down below and come on in live if you can. On Friday nights, you'll find me from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern time on Paranormal Chop Shop with Chad Smith, Jake Smith, my Sunny Bear, whoever decides to pop in. It's always an amazing time. If you've emailed me recently, I'm finally checking my emails this weekend. So if you're looking for a personal or just email me for whatever reason at either moonbearoracle@gmail.com or GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com, I'll be getting back to you very, very soon. Thank you so much for your patience, guys. I love you. I have a few interviews coming up, which is really very exciting. Also in the description box, you will find a link to one of my live streams that I do right here every Wednesday night on the Gemma Jade channel. And I pull one oracle card for everyone who comes in. First come, first serve. And that's from 7:15 p.m. to 10:45, 11 p.m. Eastern time. And I do that every single week. Okay, come join the fun, come join the family. Even if you don't want a card, it's a really amazing time. It's a good community of people in there. I'm super, super proud of my tribe, my squad. Okay, hashtag Stemma for life. I'll leave links to the Kindle and paperback version of my book, Missing the Fae Theory by Gemma Jade, ways to support the channel, Patreon, PayPal, Cash App, Amazon, wishlist, gift link, all in the description box, guys. I love you all so, so very much. Please check out that description box. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed spending this time with me, discussing or listening to me discuss these cases. Let me know what you think in the comments below. All right, keep it friendly, keep it respectful. This isn't like when I talk woo and extraterrestrials and UFOs and all that. This is missing persons cases, and these people have families, and I won't tolerate any bullying or victim shaming or any dumbass comments that I know trolls like to come in and make. You'll be removed, deleted, and reported immediately. Feel free to have a discussion between yourselves, though, and I will comment to as many of the comments as I possibly can. I've been looking through the comments, and I think I'm going to start pinning, my favorite comments and trying to get more involved in the chat. I've been kind of lagging on that, too, just with everything else going on, all right? So, yeah, if you want to support the channel, Cash App, PayPal, Patreon, you can join for this channel, and then the Amazon wish list. I've been receiving so many gifts, guys. I was like, oh my gosh, it's like Christmas in Gemma Jade's house. Thank you all so, so very much. I may even do a video showing off all of my amazing, beautiful gifts from all of you. There's enough to actually do an entire video. You guys are so, 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 so amazing. Be kind to each other, guys. It doesn't cost anything. Spread the love by sharing this video. If you haven't subscribed already, please do that. Go on over to Spaced Out Radio and subscribe. It's me, Big Willie Townsend, John Hudson, Lynn Wallington on the weekends, Dave Scott, okay? What more do I have to say? Also, you know, I write a lot of the scripts. I'm head writer for Missing Persons and Mysteries. Steve Stockton, Bill Melder. If you don't know about it, go on over there. I'm sure a lot of you already do, but if you don't, go check it out. And also Paranormal Chop Shop, Chad Smith podcast. Let's get these smaller channels, oracles and beyond. If you're not subscribed to these channels, just look them up, subscribe to them. They're amazing. They're my brother and sister channels. SOR is my family. MPM is my family. Chop Shop family. Oracles family. You know, we've got to keep close-knit in this community, especially the paranormal and UFO community, right? Even the true crime community. We're like the YouTube outcasts. Anyway, I'm rambling. I'm very tired. So again, be kind to each other, guys. It doesn't cost anything. Be kind to yourself. Never accept anything less than others being kind to you. If you love someone, please let them know it. Death is certain and unexpected, right? Always go in grace. Have your best day. Have your best night. And I will see you next time. Bye.